Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today in War Thunder we're having a look at Mike 10D's 1.85 dev server Datamine, and we're also going to be looking at some other stuff as well, but two pieces of information before we start this video. The first one is there is Vegas Pro 15 available on Humble Bundle, and I'm wondering if I should pick it up, to basically help with my editing and stuff. Right now I use VideoPad Video Editor, and if anybody has any experience with Vegas Pro or anything like that, maybe, could you give me your opinion on it? I think would be the best thing to go for, because obviously, it's a decent chunk of money. I don't just want to chuck that away for something I'm not going to use that much. So yeah, please tell me your opinions. On top of this, on the Discord server, we have been ramping up the ramping up the stuff that we've been doing. We have an art contest, we have a clip contest for War Thunder. We also have the fact that we are running a bunch of giveaways. We're going to ramp up to 2 giveaways a day from today, and this would all be game giveaways and also War Thunder giveaways. So if you're interested in that, please join the hub. It's also a massive community of people that love talking. As you can see, in general chat, we already have a ton of people having a chat. So yeah, overall, if you want to join, come along. There is a link in the description. So let's get into this to start with. The first thing to understand is I will be looking at 2 sources of information. First one is from Mike 10D's 1.85 dev server Datamine, and one is from Unknown294. Now, if you don't know who Unknown294 is, he is one of the members of the Tech Hub. He also runs a variety of servers that we have going on the Tech Hub, such as, the Minecraft server, which is kind of like a Christmas thing for some of the guys, and also he, data mines. So here, he created a list of either updated stuff or new stuff, and it's been very, very helpful. He also helped me a lot with a lot of the pictures, such as these that you see here. So thank you to Unknown294, and also thank you to Mike 10D for making his dev server Datamine. So we're going to be going through all of these. We're also going to be going over information which is regarding to old dev servers, which, they still have pictures on them or images or files for certain vehicles which aren't in the game yet. So these are to have a look at maybe possible festive event vehicles, and also going forward maybe some new mechanics and stuff like that. So let's get started. The first one is the M15. Now the M1542 that you can see here, this is this machine here. As you can see, it has a long-barreled main gun, and it was kind of surprising that this wasn't on the dev server, since the medium tank line was kind of there for the Italians, but not really. And basically this would be a probably rank 1, it would be a rank 2 machine, very similar to the other medium tanks that we saw at lower levels. I think it'll be quite fun to use, quite fast and all over the place. You can see that the model itself is incredibly high HD, which is nice to see. Overall, a nice little addition. I mean, for me, like when I look at the Italians, the rank 1 and 2 looks really fun. The rank 3 and 4 and 5 look very, very sparse, to be honest, with a lot of prototypes in there, but at least there is no copy vehicles from other nations, and I'm very happy about that. Instead, they decided to copy some of the premiums, so you have the 105 Semavente in the tree and as a premium, and then you have the P40 and the P40 Leoncello. I think this is the way to go instead of adding other nations' vehicles. The next one is a version of the M15. So if we go back to here, it is the Contrario, or however the hell you say it. My Italian is awful. This has 4 20mm on it, and they are Canon Mitragliera, the 2077, the Scotties. And so this, a lot of people have been saying, is going to be very similar to the Wirbelwind, and they might, it's 420mm, the fire rate should be a little bit less, it should be a little bit less, and overall, it has a decent amount of armor on it. Where is it going to be in the tech tree? I mean, we have that AA, which is at 3.3, which is just a moon buggy with a Oerlikon on the top of it. I definitely think this will be after after that. So maybe around 4 or something like that. I wonder if we'll get a second dev server to have a look at vehicles like this to see how effective they are. The next one is just an M113 with a tow missile attached to it. Since the Italians don't have an ATGM launcher, this is going to be their ATGM launcher, or at least that's what it seems like. So the main question for me is, obviously the tow missile is very good, but the main question is, will this get scouting? Kind of like how the Type 60 ATM for the Japanese, that has scouting, but is that because its ATGM is the worst in the game, or is it just because it's a lighter vehicle? I would like to see this have scouting, just like a lot of the other Italian vehicles. I think for me, that could be their, thing. Light vehicles, very quick, high firepower, and, quite slow reloads, when we look at, the recoilless rifles, or, when we look at, maybe the ATGM launcher, I'll have a think about that. But overall, nippy vehicles, high damage, scouting ability. For me, that just seems like the core of at least the rank 4 and 5 of the Italian line, on top of the OF40s and also the automatic going into rank 6. So yeah, this is the ATGM little buggy. The next one wasn't in the dev server. This is the 15-ton 105mm AMX-10RC. If you have a look at the list here, you'll see it right here. AMX-10RC. It's pretty much an armoured car. From the French, it's going to be in the top tiers of the French line. It's a 6-wheeled, not very well armoured, 105mm stabilised gun. And basically what you're getting from this is another vehicle which is fast, which is mobile, very much similar to the Centauro, which is coming to the Italian tree. It should also be able to fling around APF SDS. We've already seen with the Italians, at least from the first dev server, they are starting to limit what certain guns can fire, depending on what BR that they're putting at. So this could easily be a Heat FS slinger, but on top of it, it could also fire APF SDS. If they decide to not give it APF SDS, we're looking at around maybe 707 to 77. If it has APF SDS, I can see it being around 8387. No matter what happens, it should be really fun. I hope that it does get scouting. One of the things that was kind of sad to see from the Centauros was that they didn't seem to have the scouting ability, and for me, these tanks are not going to be what we would class as meta, but they could easily have a place in the game as a tank which has a wonderful stabilized gun and has scouting on top of it. Kind of like the Type 80, the Type 89, I believe, which was the Japanese machine. I don't think it was the Type 87. I believe it was the Type 89. But yeah, like that. I believe all these machines should have scouting. Should be really fun to play, though. I found that the 3-wheeled configuration is not very good at turning, at least in the game right now, because the middle wheel gets stuck a lot. So we'll have to see how it actually maneuvers, but speed-wise it should be good, gun-wise it should be great, obviously stabilization is good. Another thing to comment on is the new map, the Vietnam Hills map. It's going to have a lot of boggy ground, and with this AMX-10RC, it might get bogged down a lot in places like that. So it's going to be a hit or miss depending on what map you are on. The next one is the T-30. Now, a lot of people have said that they believe that this is going to be the festive event top-tier tank or ground vehicle, and they might be right. I have no idea whether this will be or not. It will be a surprise since it's a 6.7 and also a meaty 6.7, but since the Americans already have the T-29 as the premium and the T-34 as the standard tech tree, vehicle, the T-30 would fit in as kind of this gift premium. So what's the difference between this and, let's say, a T-34 or a T-29? Well, this has the T-29 chassis, and it has a 155mm gun on it. It has two-stage ammunition, or it has the shell and charge, kind of similar to what you see on stuff like the Conqueror or the Challenger, two-piece, as people know it, and it's also assisted by a spring rammer, so the reload shouldn't be that bad on it, but, I mean, looking at War Thunder, it'll probably be pretty bad. It fires AP or HE, sorry, so it doesn't fire AP HE, just AP or HE, so exactly the same as the T-34, with its AP and its HE. So You're pretty much getting a one-shot gun, or at least it should be a one-shot gun with this AP. If any of you have used the T-34 or the M103, the AP shell just by itself does a hell of a lot of damage, especially after they reworked it in, when they released the French about a year ago. So these things are really good in that. The T-30 as well, along with the 29 and 34, has really good armor on the front, on the upper glacis, on the turret mantlet. The only issue it has is the lower glacis, which can be a rough shot to hit. And if this gets a similar BR to the T-29 or the T-34 as 6.7, maybe 7.0, because of the gun. I think 6.7 would be fine though, since it's exactly the same armor. The only difference is your gun is a little bit, stronger, but if they just increase the reload, then, putting it at 6.7 would make sense. The next one is the MB152. Or specifically it is called in game the MB152C1, and the MB152 in general was the main production version of the MB152 was of the MB150 series of aircraft. This one was the one which was mainly produced. So there's 482 of these built. It has access to 2 Hispano-Suzas that you can see on the inner wings, and then on the outer bits you have 2 7.5 millimeters. So very similar to a lot of other aircraft that we have. Probably 120 rounds of ammunition for the Hispano-Suzas, which isn't great, but it's good enough. It's powered by a Nomron 14N25 engine, 1,050 horsepower. I can see this being like a late rank 2 vehicle. And a lot of people have been saying this could be the festive event vehicle. I kind of disagree, just because as I said, out of the MB150s, like up to the MB158, I think, or the 156, where some of them weren't built, but this one was just the one which was mainly produced. So having it as a gift vehicle doesn't really make sense. For me, when I look at gift vehicles, I look at weird and wacky ideas that were either just prototypes or maybe main production, and they're not that great, or they're not as good, as their tech tree counterparts, but they're a little bit of fun. Lorraine 155T, as I said, I think is a perfect example of a machine which I like as a festive event vehicle or a gift vehicle. With this, I would much prefer to have this in the main tech tree. The next one to have a look at is the Su-85A. Now, this has actually been in the files for a while. If we look at this video here from the 21st of October 2018, this is a video I made looking at the YA5M and the Su-85A. They did actually add in the YA5M, so the Su-85A is left without its brother in the dev server files, and we actually have a picture of it here. Now, I went over the Su-85A, what it was, and also stuff like the Su-57 and the Su-57B and all of that, and the A version, they wanted to upgun the Su-76, so they stuck an 85 on it. The issue with sticking an 85 on it was, first of all, it's too heavy, and second of all, the Sus, at least in this sense, were supposed to be infantry support vehicles as well as sometimes tank destroyers. So the 85 didn't really give you that. It was the same reason why the Su-57 didn't really work out either, because the long-barreled 57mm, it wasn't good at supporting infantry. It was just good at killing tanks. So in that multi-role sector, you want a gun which is good for killing infantry and also good for killing tanks. And unfortunately, it just wasn't the case. Like the 57 and the 85 were much better at tank killing than infantry supporting. Also, the issues with the chassis on the Su-85A was that it wasn't really powerful enough, and this is why they switched to the Su-85 that you can see in game with the T-34 chassis. And it was, I suppose you could say the Su-85A was also a way of trying to use older chassis and keep them relevant, such as like the T-70, T-60, T-80, which are, we see a lot of them get upgunned through like prototypes and stuff like that, as I said, like the Su-57s, and it was trying to bring them into the modern era, but it just wasn't haven't seen as feasible. So yeah, in-game I can see this coming to the trees. It makes sense. It's just an SU-76M with an 85 on it. It'll still be quite slow. It will be very similar to the SU-76. Like, I really don't see that much of a difference in power with it. I mean, the gun, yeah, it's better, but the gun isn't the limiting factor on the SU-76M. The maneuverability, the fact it doesn't have a turret, and the fact that it's open-topped are the limiting factors. So, yeah, I mean, this could easily be a gift vehicle. Depending on its BR, it could be pretty good, could be a nice little grinder for people. The 85mm is good for the Soviets, especially on stuff like the T-34-85. So, past then, we'll have a look at some other stuff, but this was all the stuff that was on the dev server of update 1.85. There's also a few other things to note. If we look at the PDF from Mike 10D, there's an Italian Stuka bombs added, and my guess is that this is for dive bombers for Italy, such as, you know, the SM-91, which I'm guessing is supposed to be a pseudo dive bomber, and also the new Reggianis, which were added. Maybe they're going to get something similar to that. So there's the TOW that we talked about, the M15s, and this. So this is a Semavente M4375 Bersaglieri, and the only difference between this and what looks like the ones in the tech tree is that it has some what look like Breda machine guns on top of it. Something I do want to mention that a lot of people pointed out in the video that I did looking at the Italian tanks, the Semaventes, the 43s, they have extra armor underneath the armor, so they have 25mm on the front and then 75 behind that, so that creates spaced armor of around about, you know, you have basically the 25, then the air pocket, then the 75, so effective thickness, maybe 110, something like that, 120, and then it's also sloped. So a lot of people said, you know, I missed that, I did miss that, I apologize for missing it. Do I think it's going to make that much of a difference? No. The problems with the Semaventes aren't their armor. The problem so far with them is the penetration on the guns, the lack of any decent engine, and also the fact that a lot of the armor, even though it's slightly sloped, it's still pretty much flat. And where the crew is situated. Since the majority of them are a 3-man or a 4-man crew, it's very easy to take out the driver and gunner and then just move on. They've got big weak spots on the front of them, and therefore you got to shoot first and you got to do damage. And the problem with a lot of the guns, at least when we look at penetration, they didn't have this damage. So yeah, that is something to think about. There is also some other stuff in the dev server files. There's a bunch of attachables or decorations. So we have an AKMS, a FAMAS F1, the G36K, the L85A1, the M4 carbine, and the SCS 7090, plus the Type 89F, and also a winter hanger. But yeah, these guns seem to be either for an event, such as the winter event. You know how every so often we get a bunch of guns which go along with the festive events. What I liked, not last year, but the year before, we had the baubles stuff, and the baubles stuff was like community goals. So if a majority of the community did the challenges, we got collective goals, and I thought that was really cool. It was a way to bring the community together. It was like an overall goal instead of just a personal goal, and that is something that War Thunder in general has struggled with when it comes to events. A lot of them are based around the individual instead of a collective, and as from a community point of view, if you want to, you know, grow the community or whatever, you want to focus on collective goals instead of individual. So with stuff like the baubles, you know, from a few years ago, that was good for that aim. Hopefully we see them back. The winter hanger as well is obviously a festive hanger. It's got a nice Ferris wheel and some wintry stuff going on. And then we have some maps. So we have the Vietnam Hills tank map. This is the little map that you'll see in the bottom right corner. Then we have the Falklands map, the Fuego Island ship map right here, and an Afghan air map. So my guess is all of these are going to be coming in the next... probably in the next update, maybe later on, since a lot of the assets for maps and stuff are kind of added a few updates before they actually come out, so we'll have to see. Then we have some air guns, so Cannon Hughes Mark 11 Mod Zeros, the L8A1, we get some SNEB Type 26 rockets and HVAR-Ds, 8mm Breda Mod 37, 5-inch 25 Mark 13, 6-inch 47 Mark 16s. I haven't had a look much into these. Either they're on new vehicles, or it may be good to look at them to see if they're going to be on future vehicles. On top of this, I did show in the air vehicles video that the ME-163, both types, have the wheels now, so they actually take off from the airfield. I think this will annoy a lot of ME-163 pilots, but I think it will make everybody else feel a lot better about themselves, just because the ME-163 flying across the place at crazy speeds, just like the F-84 did back in the day, it's just kind of annoying, and it throws off the timing of the battle, because you don't know whether they're coming or not, obviously. So, with that said, this means that you can drop the BRs of the ME-163s, and they'll be a hell of a lot of fun. So hopefully that will be the case. Mantler changes as well. So the T-25, M26, T-26E1, and M46, all the American tanks, have an 88.9mm spore shield, which is right here. This will be very, very nice to make sure to try and stop some more shells going straight through the mantlets, which is incredibly annoying. It's also a refined mantlet with new parts, so they've just basically redone the mantlets. Then we have some 152mm right here. There is also the M26A1. This is the Italian version. It gets a 203.2mm spore shield. So good luck going through that. Remember, this is a 6.7 vehicle, and a lot of people pointed out with this and the M36, the M36B1, they both use the M3A1 gun, the 90mm, and the M3A1 gun could fire heat FS, and the only difference I saw between the M3A1 gun and the one that we had in the American tree was it had access to like another APCR round, and that's just no like up tiering an M26 and an M36, because you've got a slightly different hull on the M36, which doesn't really give additional armor at its BR, plus, you know, only giving it an APCR round. That's not going to help, you know, you might as well drop them down, or, as a lot of people said, give them heat FS. Now, if you give them heat FS, then we're going to have, you know, people running around with heat FS at 5.7, since these are 6.7 vehicles. If you're okay with that, since we already have it at 7.0, and also the PT-76 at 5.3 or whatever, but obviously that's a different tank, you know, fine, that's alright. I personally would just drop these down to 6.3, and then you can have a competitive lineup at 6.3. You already have some vehicles, the dune buggies, which are at 6.7. You could create two lineups there, so yeah, that's how I would do it. Then the Panther A, D, and G mantler is refined to basically make them slightly different from each other, it seems, or maybe even the same. So 130mm in these little areas, 300 around that area, and then 100mm. I mean, it still has a shot trap. Basically, you shoot it here, or you shoot it here, or you shoot it at the bottom and then bounce it down. That's how you kill Panthers if you are struggling to pen it, or you can shoot the machine gun, or you can shoot the low glacis. You know, they have a lot of weak spots depending on what's going on. But that's the whole Mike 10D article done. Our PDF, I should say. So the next thing to look at is other stuff that's on the dev server, which isn't really new. That's been around for a while, and some of this I've covered before. Some of it I haven't really touched that much. So the first one is the CW21. This is the Curtiss Wright Model 21. It has 250s and 230s in the nose. It has a Wright Cyclone R1820GS 9-cylinder air-cooled radial engine, 950 horsepower. And the skin that you see is actually the Chinese nationalist air force. So this was an exported version from the Curtiss Wright corporation, or whatever you want to call it, business, which was sold to the Chinese nationalists. And I don't think this was actually ever used by American forces. I believe it was used by the Chinese and also by the Dutch. funny enough. I think the reason why I want to bring this up here is because I can see this being a good gift vehicle for the festive event, and it's been in the files for ages, to be honest, but I thought I would just, make sure that people remember that this thing exists. A few people that I was talking to yesterday, they thought maybe it wasn't added because of the Chinese Nationalist Air Force issues. Well, you could just change this to a Dutch camouflage and Bob's your uncle, you could go forward with that. The next one is the P-51K, and once again, it has the Chinese Nationalist Air Force emblems and camouflage, and the P-51K is incredibly similar to the P-51D. So we're literally talking about the only differences in the propeller. Hamilton Standard, who was the guys who made the propellers for pretty much everything in America when it came to, World War II, they effectively had a monopoly on propellers. Obviously, by the end of the war, more and more and more was being produced, and therefore they couldn't actually keep up with demand. So instead of waiting for these propellers for these P-51Ds, the guys who were making the P-51Ds decided just to make a 4-blade, 11-inch diameter hollow steel propeller and just stick it on. So the only difference, at least that I can find, between the P-51D and the P-51K is the propeller. So we already have the D in game. It would be very easy to make the K and just stick it in. This could also be a gift vehicle at some point, since it is very similar to the standard tech tree vehicle. For me, it would be the perfect choice for a gift vehicle. The next one to have a look at is the P-66 plane. Now, this looks like a chubby P-36, and once again, it is just another aircraft which could be added as a gift vehicle. I don't know too much about this aircraft, so therefore I'm not going to comment. I'm just going to say it's in the files. The next one is the PV2. So, just to notice, this is the PV2D. So we have this in game. It is a gift premium that we got ages ago. And what you see here is, the gun layouts, especially with the fact that it has the extended 50 cals on the wings. Well, this is the PV2, and the difference is, as you can see, is in the nose, where the guns are. You have 2 at the top, and what looks like maybe 4 at the bottom, maybe 3 at the bottom, I can't exactly tell. But yeah, that is the main difference between them, and also a slight camouflage difference as well. Now, what I've advocated for in the past a lot is the idea of, if we get gift premiums, we should get a tech tree equivalent to go along with them, and the idea would be is you could use the premium one to grind, but if you don't have access to the rare premium, then you can have a standard tech tree one, which is pretty much the same, but you don't get the same bonuses. I think this would be a perfect opportunity with this model in, the files, to add it to the game to be able to do that, because right now there isn't really a PV2D equivalent in the American tree. So yeah. The next one is a surface-to-surface missile. This is the Automat Mark 1. This was designed to be fired from ships at ships, and it's actually Italian. So we just have a random Italian missile in the files. No idea why. The next one, I can't remember. We were talking about this one last night, what it was. I believe it's Italian. I believe it's an air-to-surface missile. It might be a surface-to-air. I can't remember, but just this is also in the files. The reason to have a look at these two is just to tell you we do have Italian weaponry when it comes to ships, and obviously the Italian ship tree comes at some point. Maybe the big thrust for the Italian ship tree is the idea of missiles. Wouldn't that be kind of interesting? I thought that would be kind of cool. So, they release the Italian Navy, and it's like, hey, can we do larger ships? Well, maybe. Well, how about we just do missiles? Oh, that sounds fun. It could be something like that. The only issue with this is I have no idea. I mean, I know there are counters out there, such as I think we were talking about miniguns and stuff, which were designed to kind of just spray around the missile and try and kill it before it gets to the ship. But I don't know how well that would work in game, especially with the ships that we have. But just to say, I believe this is a hell of a long way off. I will say that. But just understand they are here. The other one is the Type 90 SSM-1B. This is a Japanese surface-to-surface missile, and it's basically the same thing. It's designed from ships to kill other ships. So we have Japanese missiles as well in the game, which is kind of funny. The next one is just some Vietnam Hills pictures. So we already had a look at the dev blog of this, and these were provided by Unknown, just like the majority of these pictures here. And this is just a general overview of what the map's going to look like. Here is a map of all the main roads that are on the map. You can see it's absolutely huge. Like, it's ridiculously big. And I am going to be very interested in going around this. Hopefully we have a dev server pretty soon to have a look. The next one is this picture, and this is what Unknown believes is going to be either the spawn points or the zones for the map. And so this is his opinion. Don't take it as fact, but I think this is the most logical opinion when we look at it. I think this black square here will be more towards this side, just to make it a bit more balanced, but the spawn points being in the east and the west, and then you have basically a diagonal of domination zones. This means that you have to fight over each part of the map. I'm very worried that this map might be too big, as I said in the dev blog video. We're gonna have to see once we start trancing around the thing. There's also this screenshot. This is from the town itself, just showing how beautiful it is. One thing that Gaijin is very good at is modeling scenery, and also modeling, vehicles. The game is absolutely stunning, and always will be. It's one of the great feats of War Thunder is the absolute beauty that they have been able to get out of the game, and also still be able to create a game which is designed for people who have very low-end machines as well. It's an amazing feat of engineering. The next one is a few screenshots of Afghanistan, and what I mean is an Afghanistan map in the game. And if you have a look at Mike 10D's thing, he talks about an Afghan air map. Well, here are some screenshots of inside the Afghanistani air map, and it doesn't look anything crazy. Basically just a bunch of mountains, very similar to the Vietnam map when it was first released. If you actually go on, not really the air version, but if you go on the whole map itself, looks incredibly similar to this map here. So hopefully this gets added in when Supersonic jets do, because a lot of the existing maps for Supersonic jets I just feel like aren't big enough, or they don't really fit how Supersonic jets are going to be. But understand that Supersonic jets are in their preliminary stages, so I'm sure once like March comes around, we'll have a big push towards maps and stuff. Once they've figured out how, the meta's going to go with them and how they're going to play, then they'll start making maps which facilitate that, which will be very, very fun. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you once again to Unknown294 and Mike 10D for the information. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.